Nobody take your glasses.
She wait me kill part. She waits up a summer to put me on punishment. A whole month of July.
Oh,
I couldn't go outside.
she started
It should be okay. All right, so, hi ladies, so I'm switching gears. So, we need to talk about our predecessor, our past pastor's vision of reaching the lost at any cost. So you're familiar with Bishop's statement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So our responsibility as leadership, as a training, as teachers in Christian ministry is to do community outreach. So how many years have you actually been a member of this church, Marcia?
Over 25.
Kim?
Roughly 22.
Deborah?
Going on 15.
Okay, so during the time that you've been here, those are different periods of time. That's a lot of tenure. It seems like between 60 or more years combined.
Mm-hmm.
How many times have you actually had the opportunity to witness outside of these four walls? Some, but I mean, out of the people in the congregation, how many of them are the fruit of your labor that came from the neighborhood?
Years. It's hard to put a number on.
Well, she said in the neighborhood, though.
In the neighborhood, not
In the
that,
neighborhood.
because we usually have a tendency to witness to people who we're familiar with,
Yes.
but our responsibility with reaching the lost at any cost is the people within the surrounding immediate neighborhood. So that's what I wanted to talk about with our church, is our responsibility to align the mission and the vision statement of going out and fishing for souls. So that means that I'm going out and fish for souls. Go ahead.
I was going to say, we used to have an evangelistic team, and I was a part of that, and we did go out in the neighborhood, and we would minister to the people in the neighborhood that we would come into meet.
Right, and see, that's my point, is that we need to start it again, but we need to figure out how to do it consistently.
Yes.
So we're inconsistent. So when you think about it, I was reading Joel Osteen, and this statement really spoke to me. So for me, he got it right. He says, the reason many people are lost is because we as a church are not sowing. So sowing goes beyond tithing, offering, and doing our Sunday service where we go in and minister, because that's still within the building. So in a way, even though we think we're being selfless, we're being selfish, we're being self-centered. So we're actually contributing to the soul famine within the neighboring area. So we've seen that Cleveland is in a crisis, right?
Yes.
Amen.
So it's not just a local crisis, it's an international crisis. So unless we change our focus and start reaching out to our neighbors, I feel like Bishop Bill McKinney's legacy will be lost.
Amen.
All right, so that mission statement of reaching the lost at any cost. A lot of people, because we're not going out there and doing those touches, doing that interaction, just being friendly to those who really need us, that means that there are a lot of people out there in a depressed condition. So that means they're going to remain in that condition emotionally, financially, physically, spiritually.
Amen.
So according to Galatians 6:7, it says, whatever a man sows, that will he also reap. So if you sow sparingly, we know the law, you'll reap sparingly. So because we haven't went and put all of ourselves into reaching at any cost, we shouldn't expect a large turn on our investment. We shouldn't be surprised when we don't see the pews filled, or we see people who are inconsistent with coming to church on Tuesday or coming to church on Sunday.
Amen.
All right. So I want the response for us to take ownership and understand that the responsibility lies with us, not waiting for somebody else to pick up the idea and take the mantle. I want us to be the ones who take accountability and be the motivating force for re-implementing programs that work, where we went out and we fellowship and we took the time. But I have to see if my thought process is one that you'll agree with. Is it okay if we talk about it? All right, so I wanted us to consider Abigail. So we know that Abigail was the husband of Nabal, right? And her household was in a crisis. Her household was in a crisis because no, her husband was a rich man. He had resources. He did not need David's protection, nor did he ask for it. But because of his attitude, he put his whole household in jeopardy. When he put his whole household in jeopardy, she did what a lot of women don't do in that time. She went out and assumed authority and interceded for her family, for her household, right? So because she interceded, not only did she avoid David killing somebody and have experiencing a retribution from God, she also saved her resources and her money for her future legacy. So that's how we should be when there's a crisis in the house. We shouldn't wait for our pastor to come up with a solution or one of the other pastors to come up with a solution ahead. Sometimes it's going to have to come from the people in the ranks. We're going to have to be the ones who are creative with our resources or to come up with a proposal to say, hey, this is why there's a gap in our membership. This is why the vision is not coming to fruition, because we're sitting on our blessings, we're sitting on what we've learned, and we're getting fat off of it because we're not sharing it with the people in the surrounding area who are hungry. Their souls are crying out, and we're not assessing that need.
Amen.
We're not doing anything for that need. So thank you. So the challenge is, yes, we need an outreach ministry, right? We need for somebody to head the outreach ministry. So I'm thinking that before there's an outreach ministry, that there should be a committee, that we should get together with the other teachers and have somebody volunteer to lead the committee, but also ask everybody else to have a vested interest. So we also would need Pastor Jones enlisted in on this process. So I don't want it to just be adults involved in the planning. Since the tweens are the future, I think it's time for us to clone them and to teach them to be disciples and to go out and to evangelize. So it would be our responsibility to minister, decide if we want to minister quarterly. Do we want to go out and canvas? Because we know we've been successful when we do VBS. We have parents answer the altar call. We have children answer the altar call. But then we never see them again, right?
Right.
But we know that we touch them for that one moment in time. But you can touch a person for a moment in time, and that's a seed, but a seed needs to be nourished. So in order to nourish the seed, we need to follow up with them. We have to determine quarterly, semi-annually. We have to figure out, are we going to have somebody who's responsible for scribing all of the information for people who we evangelize to, whether it's inside the church or outside of the church, and document that information. We have to figure out, do our people need training? So yes, we know how to minister John 3:16. We know how to do accept, believe, confess. Yes, the ABCs, but how do we continue to reel them in? How do we continue to grow our ministry? All right, so that it's beyond the capacity that what they're saying, what they're speaking, that we're going to see people coming into our church from the surrounding area, not just the people who we know on a personal level, but people who are complete strangers to us. So that would mean we can't do it in 2014. This is something that we will have to look forward to putting together in 2015. How do you feel about enlisting the tweens? You think it's time, or should there be a certain age? Because I'm like, at what point do you start pushing them out to evangelize? Should it be 12? Should it be 13? 14, 15, 16? Do we need to have applications on file for the people who are volunteering? Do we need to assess where they are spiritually? Because people always volunteer to do a job, and we know just even when we're in our classrooms, if we don't invest enough time in them shadowing us and learning the process, that when they go to try and regurgitate and pull people in, they're not always successful, or they burn out quickly, or they get disillusioned and they go back and sit in the pews. That's what we're trying to avoid. So we want to fill the pastor's vision by helping increase the tithe, the offering, the Thanksgiving pantry all year round. If we had people in here, other bodies helping to tithe and give, it would make the burden, it would alleviate the burden on a lot of people, the faithful few who do it. All right, so today what I'm asking for is, would you all be amenable to volunteering to be on a committee to reach the lost at any cost? All right.
Yes, I would.
All right, so because it's my idea, I'm suggesting that I would chair it. All right.
All right.
But I would still ask for support from you all, and also for you as the leadership, the department heads, to go back and share this vision with the people who report to you before we discuss it as a group, so that when we come together, it's not just us telling them this is what the vision is. We can ask them, do you think this vision will work? Are there holes in the vision? Is there something you would like to contribute to the vision? Is there something that we did last time that we did really good and was successful? Is there some things that we did bad that we don't want to repeat? Because we want to start this and we want to continue this. So, do you have any questions?
Just a comment about when you were saying about the kids being propelled out there too. My thought is that I'm not even thinking about age, if you will, because I can think of one child in the junior church that will do fine out there with the tweens. So I think it's a matter of when you think about the students, because some of the tweens may not be mature enough to go out there yet, because they're just not at that spiritual maturity level. So I think it's a matter of the spiritual maturity level as opposed to age when you think about the tweens or children ministering.
But I think that's a valid point. But even we have children or we foster children, and we know that each child is different.
Right.
So I agree that every child is different. So we know adults who are not mature, who are not there.
Absolutely.
Right.
So maybe in the application process, we may make that more stringent to weed out the people who are not ready without offending them.
Right.
Do you
Right.
think
Right.
that would work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
What else?
Definitely, we would definitely need training, because like you said, as teachers, we know a lot on how to do it on a more of a children's ministry level, but to be able to get out there, and reach, because you're going to run into different people who's been hurt, by the church, or doesn't believe in anything, so you're going to come across different types of people. So knowing how to get out there and minister to them, and not actually just preaching at them, but to minister, to bring them in, to kind of meet them on their level, and so there is going to be some form of training, formal training, for not only for the young people, but even with some of the adults that we may draw in, and they volunteer to do this as well. Because it's one thing to say, okay, I'm all for it. It's another thing when you get out there, and if you don't have that boldness, okay, to be able to do that, you're just a vessel just standing on the sidelines, okay? So you do need to, there does need to be some type of training involved.
Okay, so when we look at other religions that minister, the rule of thumb is witnesses 2. So it would have to be at least 2 qualified people, right, to go out and to minister. Also, you do have to know your audience. So just going out there myself and experiencing people, there are people with psychological issues. So they're bipolar, that they already hear voices. So you're right, we don't want to contribute to the voices. That wouldn't be a time to speak in tongues.
Right.
That would just add to the confusion. Or there are people who don't know about Jesus Christ. So we've experienced young people who've come and they want to get married in this church, and they figured because they were raised in Haiti, they knew the Bible, but they were never told to accept Jesus Christ as their personal Savior, and that confused them. They, so you're right that we have to have our vision in place. We have to have the right people. We have to figure out not only having the teachers involved, but there's also the pastoral ministry team. So they're equipped to do that. So that's where we would have the senior intercessors or leadership come in and assist with it. So I'm thinking people like Mignon. She's trained. That is her job outside of the church. So we found that when we had the young lady who came, she was a meth addict sitting out there. I couldn't have a conversation that Mignon had with her. But it's at least if you can't witness to somebody, we should at least have people on the team that we can redirect you to somebody else who can help you.
That's
Right.
good.
What else?
And I think also with not only minister, but also have resources. Resources that we can give them, if they need help. If they need, if they're on drugs, or if they're have the psychological issues, because there are resources out here that a lot of people aren't aware of, even just with your health, with your health. There's a lot of resources, the Cancer Society, Heart Association. There's a lot of stuff that's out here that people aren't really, they may know about it, but don't know how to go about obtaining the information.
Well, there's actually social services books. So I know when I went and thought I wanted to teach daycare, own a daycare, so they had a book at the School of the Blind, where you could go through and figure out for alcoholism, for depression, this is where you can refer them to, because we're not going to be able to minister to everybody 100%. That's being unrealistic. So we should always have a contingency plan. So those are good points.
I think the follow-up is really important, because we make the initial contact, and then after that they're lost. I know when I was on the pastoral care team, it seemed like the people that I talked to, the questions that they have afterward, after they've come and made a decision or been ministered to, is very important. That you can actually show the love and minister to the individual. And I think that's something that we're really lacking.
All right,
Is
so
the
it's
following
beyond
up. Yeah, beyond
a Bible track.
Right.
Yes.
We need to
Yes.
invest in them
Right.
over a long period of time. We just can't say you're saved. I know one of the benefits of me coming here, because I was not raised in a charismatic, non-denominational church. I was just like, you will go to hell if you don't accept Jesus. Go get baptized. I'm like, okay, I'm doing this because my family member said do this. I have no inkling of why I went to get baptized. I don't have a relationship with God at 13. I don't have a relationship that I have now. And I'm like, coming here, that's how I understood. I'm like, oh, revelation. So the same revelation that we got, we need to start imparting into them.
Yes. They're going to have many questions, and then they need somebody to help them with it.
So this is a real issue, right? So I want to leave you with this. Maybe. It's still not behaving. All right. I'm thinking about, instead of lost at any cost, calling it maybe a community harvest that's on a continual basis. Because Cleveland, as we said, is distinguishing itself. We have Cleveland's crime rate is higher than the average for Ohio, according to the 2013 statistics. And it's even higher than the national crime average. That's not good. So when we look at the crime index, so they'll show you U.S. 1,723, Ohio 1,751, our city 4,841. So based on how they're looking at the region, the crime within this city outweighs the crime in our state, even nationally. So I'm like, it can be compared to Washington, D.C. or Detroit. So when it comes to hate crimes, we've been in the news, right? We're still high. We're just below the national index, and we're below the state, but for me, we shouldn't be having the hate crimes that we're having. So it creates a distrust. So the crimes that are occurring where we live or where we work. That's an embarrassment. So that's why I'm proposing